I'm gonna be honest. I wish today's video was a brighter topic, but I'm not in the business of conflating my mood, and I think that in many ways, videos like these are going to be the most potent, high impact ones that I can make. So I'm not going to do myself or anybody else the disservice of not talking through them. I know it's always great when you start on such a bright and cheery note, right? Buckle up, it's going to be a ride. No, but a couple things that I just want to say first and foremost. So I am recording this today on Memorial Day. I just want to take a moment to honor the fallen and the men and women of our country who have given their lives so that weird 24-year-olds like me can just sit in the entryway of their apartment and orate their feelings. I just wanted to pay respects to that. And also, I'm realizing now that this video is going to go live this upcoming Sunday, which happens to be my birthday. June 5th is my birthday, and it's going to be kind of funny to look back and be like, wow, she recorded such a terrible video on her birthday. But again, life is a journey, and this is just one part of it. So without further ado, let me dive into why I look so somber and why I'm prefacing the nature of this video so heavily. So yesterday I went to my parents' house, and I went to my parents' house because I got a new exhaust system for my motorcycle. If you didn't know, now you know. I have a motorcycle, and we were gonna install it together. It was kind of like his birthday gift to me, to graciously give me a bunch of his time, and we kind of just worked on that together, and it was such a beautiful bonding experience for the two of us. I had so much fun, truly, learning about the exhaust and what makes an exhaust system function on a motorcycle and the different parts of an exhaust and the various components, and getting to tinker and learning so much and using my hands and building something was such a pure, warm, just such an inviting feeling for me. And this was the first time that I had spent a multitude of time at my parents' house in quite a little while. I've made trips home here and there to pick stuff up or to drop stuff off or to take out my motorcycle to go riding and things of that nature. But this is the first day in, I can't remember how many months that I've spent an entire day at home. And it really didn't start out bad. It actually was really good. The weather was nice, and I got a cigar on my way home, and I sat outside, and it was quiet because my mom wasn't pestering me. And I just listened to a podcast, and I read, and I smoked, and I just was so relaxed. And I literally recorded a 12-second video on my Instagram for myself, just documenting this feeling, the fact that I was so shocked that I was home and I felt this good, and that it was such a mark of how much I've healed and of how far I've come on this healing journey. Just the fact that I could look around and be in a place that has carried a lot of trauma and has carried a lot of discomfort for me historically my whole entire life, and to be completely thoughtless and to be mostly really calm and very present. I was so grateful. And I had a wonderful time with my brother. And the story really shifts when we all sat down as a family for dinner. And it's not an atypical story. I think part of the reason why I was so triggered is because it's such a typical, common story for me with my family, which is that, my brother and I haven't been coming home as often as we used to. I think he has his own life and I have my own life, and we're both just really, for the first time, maybe very concentrated on figuring out who we want to be and building that life super consciously. I mean, I can't speak on his behalf, but I've definitely noticed that shift in him too. And so my mom has just said a lot, like, you guys don't come home anymore, why aren't you coming home? Please come home, we miss you, all that fun stuff. So my brother and I had planned to install this exhaust, and we all sat down for dinner finally. My dad finished grilling and my mom put the salad on the table, and we had such a beautiful day, my brother and I, and this exhaust build, it came out just so perfectly, and I love it so much, and I'm so blessed that I was able to afford that and make this happen for myself. And then we sit down, and the topic is not how are you guys? Or, let's chat, let's keep it light, let's do this thing that families do. It just goes right back to reflexive old times, which is my mom projecting and not yelling as in, like when I hear yelling, I hear this connotation of like someone's punishing someone else or blaming someone else. You're yelling at someone. She wasn't yelling at anybody. She was just yelling out, like telling a story with so much aggression and tension in her voice and projecting so loud, like these decibels, because my dad's not listening to what she's saying. And it happened. Trigger warnings around food and disordered eating habits and that kind of stuff. This is something that I've talked about openly and honestly and quite regularly on my channel. It's something that I've always struggled with, or struggled with for a very long time. Knock on wood, I've been doing really well in recent times. But I had this big plate of salad with just all my nutritious foods. And I sit down to eat it, and my mom just starts projecting and yelling, and it's so tense. And I just start scarfing my food down. I'm not going to call it a binge because I had already set on my plate and I knew how much I was going to eat and it was fine, but I just start scarfing my food down. She's yelling, here I go, just like old times, fully dissociated, just down and just trying to essentially eat at a pace that can get me to focus on, I guess, rerouting my trauma, because I've talked about how much trauma I have in my stomach area, and my stomach started to hurt really badly. It just shot up, like my pain or my discomfort, like that, like an aggressive shift up. And I was almost done with my plate by the time that I realized what I was doing. And I realized what I was doing was just trying to numb or balance out or counteract or distract, whatever the words are that I still don't know exactly how to put to this kind of situation or this trigger, but trying to stuff myself in here so that I can kind of just numb myself out. It's kind of like a really, really self-sabotaging form of self-medication, which I guess you can argue most forms of self-medicating are self-sabotaging, whether or not the person's consciously aware of it or not. But yeah, I realized that my stomach hurt. My stomach hurt because I was scarfing down this food, and it was just way too much food to put into my stomach in way too short of a time. And I had maybe like 4 or 5 bites left of this plate of food when I came to, and I had that conscious realization that I was stuffing myself because it was so loud and stressful that I didn't want to be there, and I just snapped out of it, and I just pushed my plate away because I reached this level of discomfort in here that was just too much to bear. Once I consciously became aware of what I was doing, I just pushed it away, and I looked down at this tattoo, and the fact that I got this tattoo as a commemoration of the fact that I wasn't going to hurt my inner child anymore. And I've talked about, maybe not in depth or in length, but I have mentioned the fact that I feel like my inner child lives right over here. I've got the ego that lives in there. He's kind of represented by a boy, and then I've got inner child, which is a younger version of me, and that's represented by a girl. And I literally just pushed this plate of food away, and I realized that I'm hurting myself, that I'm trying to numb a set of feelings and tensions that are externalities. They're coming from my mom yelling. They're coming from this feeling of not being heard, of slowly getting a grimacing face, and this tension because I'm not feeling well and nobody at the table is noticing, and my brother's just trying to keep the peace and enjoy his meal. And it all just snowballed. And it's a familiar story for me, and I started to grab at my stomach because it was literally like the muscles in my stomach on the left side were cramping and twisting down because I was in so much pain. There was so much tension in there. And eventually my family noticed that I wasn't doing well, and they started to ask, and I was fully dissociated, and I just said that for the first time. I was like, I can't tell you how my food tastes. I've dissociated. The yelling is hurting my stomach, and I can't eat anymore. And I just go full robotic, and my mom just kind of throws her hands up, and she's looking around for comfort from somebody so that she doesn't blame herself, when in reality my dad was being quiet and my brother literally said not a word and my mom's just yelling. And I just sat at that table and I started to cry. Not full cry, but I started to get tears welling in my eyes because I just couldn't forgive myself almost for the fact that I felt or realized that I was letting my inner child down and that I was doing the exact set of behaviors that I know better than to do if I'm consciously aware of it or if I'm prepared. And the truth, be told, I just didn't show up to that dinner table thinking that this was going to happen because I was in such a good mood. I was on such a natural high, spending this good quality time with my brother and honoring these just deep, primal, innate, childlike, whatever you want to call it. I think probably a combination of all three feelings and urges towards me, which is to be a wonderful, powerful woman who rides motorcycles, to be somebody who can afford to make really a useless purchase like that. And the fact that I worked with my hands for a few hours and bonded with my brother and worked on that community and everything, I was vulnerable in the sense that I didn't show up to that dinner table on the defensive, calculated, checking in with myself. I was just happy. And that happiness, that dopamine was up, and I just tilted and unconsciously did the same thing that I've always done. And the fact that I hit that pattern was really hard for me. And eventually my mother left the table because she realized that it wasn't conducive to my health for her to be there any longer. And my dad asked me if he could do anything for me, and after saying no 10 times, I eventually surrendered and I said, "Can you make me a tea?" And that's the first time that I've asked him to help me when I'm not feeling well, and I just, let myself receive that help, and the tea made me feel better. And slowly, as it was quieter and the tea kind of just worked through me and warmed me up, that tension started to subside, and I was exhausted because here I was coming off the end of a really intense trigger. But I think the thing that hurt me the most was, and the reason that I started to cry, was the fact that once I consciously became aware of what I was doing, it just felt like I was hurting myself, and I took a lot of responsibility for that in a way that I don't ordinarily. Ordinarily, if I feel like I'm self-sabotaging or I'm turning that blame on myself or I'm punishing myself, it comes with this really venomous, nihilistic, at least we can do something about this. You deserve that. I realized in that moment, there's nothing that I deserved but just to be loved, and that love wasn't showing up at that dinner table, and I felt extraordinarily responsible and at blame for falling into that loop. But then a really beautiful thing happened. And a beautiful thing happened as I got calm enough and the discomfort subsided enough for me to be able to pack up my stuff and drive home. And I got back here and I made myself a second tea. And I laid down and I just tried to breathe. And that blame, that shame that I felt for the fact that I could let this slip by was countered by her. She and my ego both came to me. And yeah, they were definitely a little hurt because I was doing something that doesn't make them feel good. But they were really proud of me because the second that it came into my conscious awareness that I was doing something that wasn't good for me and that was self-sabotaging, I pushed that plate away and I didn't take another bite. And I actually didn't eat another thing from that moment onward. That's a big deal. That's a big milestone for me. Whereas in the past, I maybe would have just finished that plate and tried to get myself into like a literal food coma, or been in so much discomfort that I'm just kicking and screaming and just building that tension on myself. And then I'd come back here and binge or feel like I need to compulsively eat something to stuff that feeling away. I'm able to sit with these feelings now. And even today, the next day, today's the following day after that incident that I'm recording this, I do feel a little embarrassed, not humiliated, but a little embarrassed and a little ashamed that happened. Almost like, you're kind of like, I'm sure that this has a little bit more humiliation than how I feel right now, but like if you get scared or someone makes you laugh too hard and you pee yourself and then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And everyone's like consoling you, like, dude, that's no worries at all. You're okay. That's kind of what they're doing for me right now in this moment. They're like, you stood up for us. You didn't let it continue. And now that I'm reflecting on it, I'm really proud of myself. I'm proud of the fact that I pushed that plate away the second that I became aware of the fact that I was numbing myself. And I didn't put another ounce of food in me because I knew it was going to make my stomach hurt more, and I knew that was going to create worse problems for me. I'm proud of myself for explaining at that dinner table what was going on and why my stomach hurt. I'm proud of myself for surrendering to the help that my father was offering me in that moment and being able and willing to receive it. And I'm really proud of myself for crying, because to elicit tears at the dinner table in front of my family while this is all happening, knowing the fact that I, generally speaking, cannot cry, cannot will myself to cry, even though that emotional release is so healthy and important to a healthy human being's life, I was able to cry and be vulnerable in a circumstance where in the past my defenses would flare up and tell me, you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe, protect, scarf down food, numb, get tense, get angry, get violent towards yourself, towards them, towards anything. I broke down. I let myself be seen, and I let myself hurt visibly in front of everybody. I stayed in that arena of my pain, and I said, right now, my biggest priority is not acting like I'm okay. It's making myself okay. And it's showing up for myself and allowing myself to feel and let this pass, because I don't want to make noise, but as my shirt says on the back, the only way out is through. And in that way, I'm really fucking proud. Healing is not linear. People say this all the time. I don't think that's a new thought, and I'm glad it's not a new thought, because it's something that we all share, whether or not we believe it or feel that way. And at first I wanted to title this video, I Failed Myself, because I allowed myself to be triggered. But the reality is, I didn't fail myself at all. I was a steward of my well-being yesterday, and I've been a steward of my well-being all day today. When I was having my good time at home yesterday, I said, I'm totally going to come back, because my brother was cooking something. He was doing a test cook for something that we're making next weekend. And I was so excited to take my bike for a ride. And I was like, oh, the weather's great. I had a good time here. I would love nothing more than to come home and sit by the pool and finish my cigar and be home all day. This is cool. But today's now responsibility on this Memorial Day was to regulate my nervous system and to do what I needed to make myself feel better. And that meant waking up and treating myself with tender, loving kindness and generosity and gentleness, and letting myself heal from what was truly a discombobulating nervous system overload. Physical pain, mental pain, a reminder of all these triggers and this hardship that I had infected in me at such a young age, and it all just came flowing back in this really violent way. This really big wave. Today's point became just to float along and to help myself do what I needed to feel better. Not on any sort of timetable, not on my timetable, not on anybody else's timetable, but just to do right for myself and by myself. And so what did that look like? That looked like letting myself stay up last night, watching YouTube videos, not forcing myself to get to bed so that I could force myself to wake up early and get myself back on my normal schedule, which is what I used to do. You think trying to fight your way back into the hole of a schedule that you've created that makes you feel good is the right thing to do, but if it means that I'm going to sacrifice my sleep or just create tension, that's the worst thing to do. So I let myself stay up. And I let myself stay in bed a little bit, and I meditated in bed, and I just focused on my breath, and I held my stomach, and I reminded myself that I am a strong, powerful, beautiful person, and they reminded me that I did a wonderful job. And I slowly made my way to the gym after having a coffee and after watching YouTube videos and giving up on trying to make this crazy video and just making a short of my beautiful reaction to that cold start, hearing my exhaust for the first time, and not going home. Realizing that as much as I would have loved to sit outside and read and tan and smoke that cigar, I needed to regulate my nervous system today and be in an environment where it was safe and healthy and conducive for me to do so. So I'm here. And now I'm feeling a lot better. I'm definitely really tired because that was a huge emotional, physical, psychological bout that I endured that released its grips on me over time, but slowly. And now I'm going to go home because my brother's home, and we're going to go for a ride, and I'm going to enter back into that house, not with my guard up, but with loving kindness for myself. And if there's anything, any sort of silver lining to experiences like these, where I get triggered again, it's that I get so present after. I'm so calm and here because my nervous system is engaging and my adrenaline's pumping and my fight or flight's going off. But now I'm learning how to not control that, but to quell it and to manage it. And that makes me feel really powerful. So healing is not linear. No matter how healthy or happy or put together we are, and no matter how much momentum we have or time strings between our bad days and our good ones, these things happen. And I'm not going to tell myself that I failed because I was triggered. I actually think I won in a really big, powerful, and beautiful way. Thank you for being here. I wish you luck on your healing journey. And I love you. I hope you love yourself too. Have a good week.